believe she would like to comment on item number 10, the community center.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, board. How are you?
Good morning.
Kind of miss you guys. Well, I'm back. I just wanted to address number 10. I didn't see exactly what development you're referring to for the renovation and installation, but I just wanted to find out, are you addressing all of the community centers in the development, especially the one in Queens? There's a community center there. I'd like to kind of get some information about opening and developing some programs and developing some care for some incarcerated men that are coming home and that are passing my church's doorsteps. And I just wanted to kind of see, I'm also meeting with someone in Brooklyn with their community center and developing what you call strengthening the family project that I want to present to the board as well, and working with young people and families and their parents. So I'd like to present that to you today. One more question. Company that's working with me, and they want to know something about inspection, special inspections, procurement. I went online to investigate and I didn't find anything about that. So I'm asking if you can give me some information about that. Okay, thank you so much. And welcome back, all of you.
Thank you so much. Chair, that concludes our public comments portion, and we may proceed with the regular calendar. I would like to start with a motion to adopt the minutes of our regular meeting on Wednesday, July 26th. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. We may proceed with the chair's report.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Muted. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. It's great to be back. It is for those of, as you know, the board doesn't meet during the month of August. So it's, but that does not mean the work of managing 176,000 apartment stops. You know, everyone has been busy at work in our ongoing and continued implementation of our Next Generation NYCHA strategic plan. There have been many, many things occurring. We'll talk a bit about that. I just want to take a moment to both acknowledge and just to note that so many of our board members, our employees, our neighbors are suffering, dealing with the impacts of Hurricane Irma, Maria, et cetera, whether that be in Puerto Rico, Texas, Florida, and other U.S. Virgin Islands, Barbuda, all just the Caribbean in general. And, you know, both wanted to extend our heartfelt prayers and thoughts to them, but also to their families. The mayor, in addition to the governor, obviously, has been coordinating a citywide response of citywide agencies to specific Puerto Rico. Many NYCHA employees raised their hands to participate. We are sort of in a holding pattern until we get further direction from the mayor's office as to how we can be helpful there. Not just our emergency, preparedness colleagues, but just, sort of our professionals throughout the agency. So I think it speaks to the mission of the work that we do, which is to care for people. But also we want to be helpful. We want to be value add, and it's still very much a disaster zone in Puerto Rico in particular. So just wanted to note that for folks, and to know that we are very much, I have been in coordination, the GM has been in communication with our peers and colleagues of the public housing authorities in the affected communities. We organized a conference call for our colleagues in Houston. Specifically, we've talked to the PHA head in the U.S. Virgin Islands, which no longer exists effectively. It has been completely leveled. We've been in touch with a congressional representative from there. So, we are in both our sort of technical assistance, and we'll see if there are other ways in which we can support and help. But I do think it's important that we all continue to keep those folks in our thoughts as we do our work. Just a quick note, and I don't typically respond to questions, but they're pretty easy when it comes to things like community centers. Obviously, we are more than just buildings; we're neighborhoods. Community centers are really, we used to run 405 of them throughout our portfolio. We now run 12. Mm-hmm. So the reality is both the operations and the capital of those centers are largely either unfunded and they are run by the city's Department for the Aging or the city's Department for Youth and Community Development. We'll have someone from Community Engagement and Programs follow up with who wants to know more about how to be engaged at that level. So with that, I want to just jump right into our update this morning. As I said, it's a very busy summer for us here with our continued investment in literally bringing light and lights to our developments throughout the portfolio, replacing 60-year-old boilers in our developments that were damaged by Hurricane Sandy, and notably at Coney Island Houses. And for a second year in a row, I think we mentioned this maybe at the July meeting, our colleagues in leased housing, or Section 8, received an A for high performance. I think that deserves a round of applause. Led by Captain Pennington and the team. It is quite notable that program, and honestly, in terms of our colleagues that are facing sort of the recovery part of the various weather events, Section 8 assistance is actually one of the areas of expertise where people are asking us sort of how we do it, how we get people quickly certified, et cetera. So a lot of work both on the capital side, on the operating side, and our continued provision of rental assistance to households here in New York City. On the engaged side, a lot of really interesting things, whether it be the expansion of our gardening program, the really broad expansion of City Bike. If anyone has come to Harlem, City Bike is now in Harlem. It's very exciting. And for folks who don't know this, if you are a NYCHA resident, it is $5 a month to join. And that is something that myself and the commissioner at DOT, as well as the folks at City Bike, have been very excited about to roll out throughout the city as another way in which we are actually physically connecting NYCHA to the city. The other thing that was very cool here is that we launched an initiative with, I'm going to forget the name of the organization, but essentially providing swimming lessons to young people who live in NYCHA, and it's something that will be a year-round initiative, which we're very excited about. A lot of continued capital work, but also, again, with the support of our elected officials, going and private partners, renovating basketball courts and other types of outdoor play activities throughout the portfolio. So a lot of work that continues to happen in helping to transform the physical spaces of our communities. In terms of where one of the major focus areas for the fall is the continued rollout of the online recertification effort, which is part of NextGen, which is about two things. One, being more customer forward and friendly. Two, being paper, some 2 to 3 million pieces of paper a year, and 3, being able to be just a more efficient and effective landlord. So far, we've had over 87,000 residents recertify online. As you know, this is an annual process as required by HUD to income certify our families who are residents, and we've done this in a variety of ways, whether it be rolling out, really led by our IT colleagues in operations, whether it was just rolling out the sort of web-based platform. Then we earlier this summer in the GM sort of cut the ribbon on a number of these. Actually, the 140 plus kiosks that now exist in the management offices of so that now residents can go down to the management office. Actually, if you don't have access to a computer, do it online, all touch screen scanners. It's very cool. Or with the help of our digital van, which makes regular visits throughout the portfolio as well. This will be a continued process. Obviously, the goal is as close to 100%, and so we continue to work on this. And actually, September is NextGen Recert Month, both to encourage residents to move towards an online completion form, because once you do it once, if nothing changes, it is truly nothing changes in your family composition or income process, saving both time and resources for everyone. Big milestone in our recovery and resiliency program. We celebrated with Congresswoman Nydia Velázquez and many others, most notably the residents of Red Hook houses. The official start of the more than $550 million construction project at Red Hook, which will first begin with the completion of all of the roofs at that development. There's just a lot of work that will happen there, and really work to improve the quality of life for those developments, benefiting some more than 6,000 residents. One of my favorite things here at NYCHA is the annual awarding of scholarship to our NYCHA CUNY scholars, these two great institutions coming together. This has been, I think an important part of our history. Over the last couple of years, we've kind of supercharged it with some great philanthropic donations from notable NYCHA alum, as well as a deepening commitment from CUNY. The provost and I were talking, there's something like 20 to 25% of CUNY students who have NYCHA addresses. So it is not by accident that these two institutions are together and are so closely linked. And here, this was just a couple of weeks ago, awarding students between $1,000 and $2,000 a year to support them in their education. And they really do represent the best of this city and the next generation. Everything from new immigrants to folks who are studying biochemistry, things that I don't even understand, but just like amazing things. And we should all be proud and feel some optimism about the future. One of the areas that we continue to spend a lot of time on is continue to work with our elected officials in Washington. We've spent, as I mentioned earlier, while we now have a continuing resolution in terms of the federal funding until the end of the calendar year, we are now very focused on what fiscal year 19 looks like and how we continue to ensure that there is adequate funding for public housing in the budget. With our own congressional delegation, as well as our peers, other public housing authorities, working with their elected officials to ensure that they understand the direct connections and impacts on the capital, on funding of the capital program, most notably with House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, who spoke very eloquently about the importance of public housing as infrastructure. So really important, I think, sort of commitment at that level. And we will continue to keep this group abreast. These are just, we continue to really build out our Next Gen, I Am Next Gen campaign of extraordinary and ordinary New Yorkers who grew up in NYCHA doing amazing things. And this is just a quick photos of some of those folks who have grown up in NYCHA and are doing amazing things in our city. And with that, I submit my report and I'm happy to answer any questions. Hearing none, I will turn it over to the applicant.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Board.
Good morning.
I'd like to share with you some key performance indicators for the month of August 2017 and an announcement around heating season. We'll be looking at work orders, vacancies, and customer service satisfaction as we've done in the past. On work orders for the month of August, we finished the month with 145,000 outstanding work orders. It was almost identical to a year ago of 145,000. To note that there was an increase from July to August. That increase was due mainly to over 1,000 work orders for paint that were created. And that, in many cases, is due to a change in how we are identifying supervisors now, identifying paint. When we have maintenance people going in to look at a painting situation, they often misdiagnose it as it's a plastering job or it's something else. By having the paint supervisors do that diagnostics, it's actually driving up the number of paint tickets, but it's lowering the number of plaster tickets. And plastering is crazier, it takes longer. So this is actually, it's higher numbers, but it's actually impacting our response time by this effort. On the overview of the work orders, in August, we created 222,000 work orders. We closed 209,000. This is about 1,000 more work orders than we completed a year ago. Just to note that during the past 12 months, NYCHA closed 2.6 million work orders. That number, just every now and then it's important, I think, just take a deep breath about the amount of work that we're actually doing in light of very difficult situations. On the emergency work orders for much of August, we're at these are tracking high priority items such as heat and hot water, gas outages, elevator outages, etc. In August 2017, the average time to resolve these emergencies was 7.8 hours, below our 24-hour standard, and it was lower than last year, about 10 hours. As you note, though, from the performance from a year ago, we're about to go into heat and hot water season, so these numbers are going to be higher as in the next few months coming up. So just wanted for past performance.
There was no change to the multi-level law.
I'm going to get to that. On the maintenance work orders in days, we are actually under 4 days for a response to a simple work order. Pretty remarkable, I think, and it gets back to the chair's dictate to us to be more responsive to our residents, our customers, and the most important matter. They don't care the number of work orders outstanding. They want to know how quickly can we get to a simple repair. So this is something that we're 3.8 was lower than the month before, which was 0.45, and it's lower than last year, which was 4.9. On scope of trades, on service delivery in days, the service level in August was 74.9 days. It was lower than the previous month, 76.4 days. Very high. It's like right now that we have, we're piloting activities to rail trades to be assigned per site. We think that's going to make a big difference in terms of the timing. We actually are doing a lot with our procurement systems and making sure that we have materials in place in skill trades particularly. And again, the big issue is around planning and logistics, and we're now continuing to see the benefit of the handhelds. We saw it on the maintenance side, and we're now starting to see how can that be beneficial on the skilled trade side. On skilled trades in the overall number, in August, we created 84,000 skilled trade tickets. We closed 77,000. A year ago, we created 76,000 and closed 70,000. So again, I think this particular slide talks about productivity. What we've done is we've actually created more visibility in terms of what our maintenance and skilled trade workers are doing their wrench time. We can identify the name of the worker and when they checked in, when they checked out, and how long they actually did work. I think this is now showing, and we've got more slides, so more data to back that our productivity overall slides suggest that, and we're actually getting to more work. Department turnaround for year-to-date turnaround for days. It's higher than a year ago, and we continue to look at those units that were off the rent rolls for more than 800 days. It's one in which we are pleased, though, that the trending for the last 6 months is trending down slightly, but it is trending down, and we hope that continues as we move forward toward establishing potentially a new metric. We were looking at a 30-day metric. I think we're now looking at maybe as a 40-day metric, as something is still a reach, but something I think is doable.
And the question about the number of apartments that are getting turned, is that a relatively stable number year to year?
Yeah, it is. I think it's one in which we have such a small vacancy rate to begin with. that it's been that way for the last several years. So I think that we actually have some predictability. One thing, though, that this administration is tackling older vacant units. That's the
Right.
one sort of difference. So it isn't the number of units necessarily, it's about the timing. These numbers, we're actually doing things, it's taking us longer than it did a year ago or 2 years ago, because we're actually tackling those units that have been off the rent roll longer. But the actual number is about the same per month. On the customer satisfaction, looking at we had 4,700 phone calls, 4,800 phone calls were made, 4,400 residents responded, of which 3,600 responded that it was that they were favorable in terms of our satisfaction. This is actually it's a slightly higher than it has been in the past, and we're actually getting to more robocalls now, I think, thanks to what we're doing at customer contact centers. We're having a large, as you can see, it's a larger cohort that we're actually getting to right now. But the actual numbers, again, I'd say, I've said this before, I think what the satisfaction, the dissatisfaction, the 20% on average, is the folks saying, well, that's great, they fixed the plaster, but it still needs to be painted. Therefore, I'm not happy. That we still haven't gotten to the idea of getting a more nuanced, well, it's not, how do we actually get to the entire job? And we think we've anecdotally found out that that's what the dissatisfaction comes from. It isn't that we're actually getting to work and doing whatever work we're supposed to be doing at that time, but it doesn't represent the completion of the entire job. And so comes into dissatisfaction.
To digitizing everything from recertifications to, with the workforce actually using handhelds, et cetera. Could you see this customer satisfaction going to a sort of a digital model? And would there be cost savings associated with that? Like, whether it's a text-based or some other.
Yes, I think this is one area we've talked about before, board members. This is one area that the general manager has not paid enough attention to, put it this way. I think we have great opportunities to look at ways in which we can get, well, with the handheld specifically, I guess, to your question, we actually can get real-time data about how people, feel about the service level. So we're really looking at a more nuanced questioning. So right now we have about a half dozen questions or so that we ask. I think it could easily be, or it could conceivably, 2 or 3 times that number of questions. And so we can actually see, were you satisfied with various aspects of it, including our property management services. This really reflects, well, I guess this is overall reflection, but it really focuses on work orders, where I think the overall experience is one where we have an opportunity, I think, to look at the overall experience of our residents as a customer satisfaction tool. Still work to be done. I'd like to kind of share with an announcement that October 1st, right around the corner here, begins our heating season, and there's some updates in terms of law that I wanted to bring to yours and to the public's attention. From 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. in the conventional developments, when it's under 60 degrees outside, then inside must be equal or over 68 degrees. And for senior development, between the time period 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., if it's under 60 degrees outside, the inside must be equal to or over 70 degrees. Nighttime from 10 p.m. to 6 p.m., it's the same standard for both. If it's under 55 degrees, then inside must be 62 degrees. So these are standards now that we're looking to ensure that we maintain per law. The one thing, though, I think that just to talk about performance. From 2015 to 2016, there was a dramatic improvement in terms of the number of responses that we had to do and the time to respond. And that had to do with our focus on summer overhaul and preventive maintenance. We've done a very sincere effort of getting to, during the summertime, as much as we can, emptying the boilers and welding them and cleaning them out, et cetera. So again, if we go through the remainder of this year, when we look at the emergency response time, the report, I hope that response time will translate into our efforts around the summer overhaul. And that board completes the report of the general manager.
Now, if I have a question, I refer to the ladies first. They're good? Okay.
Go ahead.
Back to this, the heating, being that it's beginning. Now, I know that at various developments, they use different types of sources to heat the units. You know, some is high pressure, others electricity. So the response time for the heat to kick in is different, or is it about the same time for it to kick in either once the sensors know what it is, as opposed to when someone manually turns it on?
Yeah, I think to your point, that not only the type of system, but the type of how tall it is. Most of it is brick anyway.
Right.
What the retention was prior to, the day before, et cetera.
Right.
So I think that there's not a single answer to your question. I think it depends on. We have some more efficient heating systems now than our other systems, though in theory can heat a building faster. But again, I think one of the things we're going to be looking at, which is it's not necessarily unique to New York City Housing Authority buildings, but we retain a lot of heat during the course of the night before and through the day. So the taxing of our boilers don't necessarily have to crank them up to meet the demand. It could very well be looking at a much more sort of constant and sensitive approach to how we respond to that, as opposed to cranking the boiler because it's 6 o'clock every night. We are now looking at what it takes to us to get to these levels, so it doesn't overheat, which can be just as bad as underheat.
That's correct.
Just to clarify the response time, which is what I heard. Something does go wrong, our goal is
clearly under 24 hours.
Okay.
Clearly, it's an emergency to us. We will be responding within 24 hours.
And then regarding going back to the paint inspectors, I think you called?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, paint supervisors.
Supervisors. So now the precaution is they check before and after, or just before?
Oh, it's both. Actually, we actually have a series of QA that includes an independent unit of housing quality standard inspectors from our leased housing program, comes through on a statistical relevant basis to review the work as well. But yeah, it's the paint supervisor's responsibilities to ensure that work was done, identified correctly to begin with, at the back end.
Okay, and the only reason I asked that question is due to the underfunding that we have. Of course, we don't have the proper amount of personnel, and I thought that might be a factor with.
It is not okay for us to not provide a service. I mean, it's clearly, if something is done incorrectly, we have a professional responsibility to respond to it accordingly.
That's all.
Irrespective of resources.
That's all I got.
okay. Thank you. So we'll begin with calendar item number 1.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Karen Caldwell, Chief Financial Officer of NYCHA. Authorization is requested to award the authority's boiler and machinery insurance program policy to Continental Casualty Company, you would know as CNA, commencing on October 30th, 2017 and continuing through October 29th. The program, which is mandated by HUD, provides $100 million per accident limit, terrorism coverage, and business continuation coverage above a $25,000 per accident deductible. The B&M insurance program provides coverage for sudden and accidental breakdown of boilers and other machineries like generators, subject to exclusions such as normal. In addition, the coverage provides all services, including both external and more rigorous internal inspections, which are mandated by the New York City Department of Building for NYCHA's boilers, of which we have approximately 1,800. The inspection services are a major component cost of the B&M total premium and include filings of reports, in issuance of necessary remediation steps to NYCHA as part of the program offered by the boiler insurer. Additionally, the recommended insurer will provide plan review services for new construction of boilers and electric steam generator plants for sufficiency and proper equipment matching. The annual installment premium is guaranteed at $257,200, maximum not to exceed 3-year term premium of $771,600. There are no conditions attached to the premium guarantee. And with that, I request your approval to award the renewal of the B&M insurance program as I just described. Any questions? On item number 2, I am requesting authorization to award the authority's property and terrorism insurance policies to provide $425 million of property insurance subject to a $5 million per occurrence deductible for named storm and flood, $1 million deductible for all other perils, and through a separate placement, $150 million of terrorism insurance subject to a $100,000 deductible. The total annual property and terrorism insurance program premium is $9,441,467.44. And the program is effective from October 30, 2017, continuing through October 29, 2018, so a one-year policy. The authority's property and terrorism insurance premium for the recommended program will be decreasing by $657,088.56, or a 6.51% reduction in the premium from the expiring premium of the previous year. And so with that, I request your approval to award the renewal of the property and terrorism insurance program as described. There are no questions. I will go to item number 3. Item number 3 requests authorization for the approval of investment transactions that were performed by the authority's Treasury Department for the quarter ended June 30th, 2017. These transactions were performed in accordance with HUD guidelines. The report outlines the authority's cash and investment position and provides a brief overview of operational changes in cash, changes in investments, and provides current and historical rates of return on the authority's investments as a measure of the investment performance. We close out the second quarter with a net portfolio increase of $25,622,392 from the prior quarter. The executive summary portion of the report outlines the major categories of cash flow affecting the changes in investment during this quarter. We thus ended the quarter with an investment portfolio of $1,334,782,841, which excludes fiscal agent investments and other cash balances, including $210,949,528, which are largely comprised of Sandy recovery funds and energy performance contract funds, which we hold in escrow. During the second quarter of 2017, the authority earned $3,504,742 in income, representing a 3-month annualized rate of return of 1.06 basis points, or 1.06, which exceeded a comparable 3-month Treasury bill rate of 83 basis points, as well as a 12-month of 1.05 basis points. For the 12-month period, interest earned on investments totaled $10,813,168, representing an annualized rate of return of 85 basis points, which exceeded the comparable 3-month Treasury bill of 37 and the 12-month Treasury bill rate of 63 basis points. So with that, I recommend that the board approve the authority's second quarter investment resolution.
This is just a question going forward. Could we get historical charts that give us either quarter by quarter or year over year performance, just to understand, are we steady state or
Sure,
year
sure.
before? So great.
Yeah.
I see the narrative, but that would be helpful, I think.
Right. I think there are some charts in the package. I'll take a look and see if we go far enough back
Great.
for you. Okay. All right. Item number 4. Item number 4 requests authorization to enter into a financing agreement with Bank of America Public Capital Corporation, a principal amount of up to $200 million in general obligation financing pursuant to multiple energy performance contracts, EPCs, including 2 HUD-approved EPCs, the Con Ed BQ-DM EPC and the Sandy A EPC. These 2 EPCs are also on today's board calendar for approval by the Energy Department. The financing arrangement will be processed in accordance with HUD guidelines. Financing will be in the form of a master lease purchase agreement and will be issued on a tax-exempt basis once all of the terms and conditions are met. The combined payments of principal and interest for the master lease that will be financing the Con Ed BQDM and the Sandy A EPCs have a not to exceed amount of $175 million. So that's most of it. The term of the financing agreement supporting each EPC is 20 years, inclusive of the construction. The effective interest rate is estimated at 3.61%, subject to change prior to closing. And the anticipated closing date is prior to December 31, 2017. The proceeds of this financing agreement will be used for energy efficiency work and installations at up to 55 developments. In addition, the proceeds will be used for the repayment of $11 million to New York Green Bank for a one-year bridge loan, which closed in December 2016. In addition to authorizing the financing of the two EPCs with a not to exceed amount of $175 million, this resolution also seeks authorization to enter into all necessary financing and ancillary documents related to the agreement, grant to BAPCC, which is Bank of America, all security interests or encumbrances associated with the Con Ed BQDM and the Sandy A EPC that are necessary to secure such financing. The authority for the B of A financing for certain non-HUD funds expended by the authority to date related to the Con Ed BQDM EPC and the Sandy A EPC. A vendor name check is not required, and with that, I request the board's approval for this financing.
I just want to note that one of the strategic initiatives as outlined in NYCHA was exploring and every single tool at the authority's disposal to identify new resources to invest in our buildings, and certainly energy performance contracting, which is one can only do with the blessing of HUD, is one of that. And I just want to commend the finance staff and the energy staff and the capital staff around thinking through this innovative tool and really, I think, leading the industry in the GM said this kind of making investments, really being very creative in how we're using private financing to invest in our buildings. So just want the record to know that.
So just maybe a couple of questions. So this covers 55 developments, correct? So, and can you explain how those developments were chosen versus others?
I think you need to.
Okay,
Deborah
got
comes
it.
up to give
Okay,
you the-
and then just on a big picture level, it relates to, I guess, the other that with the contracts with Constellation and the other entity. If it would be great to just get a broad overview. Okay, so we get this money from Bank of America, we do these improvements, but then there are these contracts that we're paying for with these companies. What are they doing, and how it all, just a broad schematic of how this is all working. Because we're paying a lot of money, but the expectation, of course, is that there's savings that then we're capturing.
You've read my mind in part. Good morning, Deborah Goddard, EVP for Capital. I have just a few votes for you today, starting with our EPCs. So items number 5 and 6 are the two EPC votes that were just referenced. They're both to Constellation. Constellation was procured by an RFP, and the first thing they do is an investment grade energy audit, so we can understand what the potential savings are, what the needs are. Then we go into these votes, which gives them the contract to do the construction, whatever that may be, which I'll reference in these votes. And then our savings, which I'll also reference, then goes to pay, and it's an annual savings forever. There are a number of factors that go into. One's easy, the Sandy site, the second vote. We're doing a lot of work there. We're already making investments. Can we leverage those investments even further? Others, we're looking at where do we have the biggest energy drains? Where do we have the oldest facilities? Where might we be doing some work? So for instance, we are going to be investing state money in boilers. So now our energy and sustainability folks are working with our capital construction folks to see where can we best overlap and leverage the state money to a larger EPC investment in a given site. So they're not any firm, this is how you do it. It's a series of considerations. What other work are we doing? Where can we best leverage the resources? And where do we have the most need? and potential energy savings.
And it could potentially be expanded, or do we feel like these are really the ones where
No, we're going to
the
keep
biggest bang
going.
for the-
We
right,
have
okay.
a very aggressive agenda. Our energy and sustainability staff under Bowman Young and Shabu are really, they're really rocking it. And we are right now looking at how to make sure we staff them and keep it up. So the particulars on this, item 5 is the recommendation for a contract to Constellation New Energy, Inc. in the amount of slightly over $68 million for 23 sites in the BQDM area. This actually area was focused on because Con Ed is also doing work in this area, and there's a mandate. I was here several months ago. You voted some early funding to get some lighting to leverage what Con Ed was doing. So again, that was that kind of synergy we were looking for and where we would invest our efforts. 23 sites, we expect an annual savings of $4.5 million from these sites, and 20-year term, no VNC is necessary. Item 6, again, Constellation, called the Sandy A EPC. This relates to 18 of the Sandy sites that currently are in construction. The remaining 14 sites are part of another EPC that will be submitting to HUD this year for their approval. We don't expect any issues with it. In this proposal, we are recommending an award to Constellation in the amount of $43 million, and we anticipate $3.4 million in annual operating savings. Here, I should mention both in both sites they're projecting 46 Section 3 hires apiece. Any questions? Okay. Item 7 is a recommendation to award a job contract for roofing services at various developments to Pope Contracting in the amount of not to exceed $15 million. This is an as-needed contract for roofing repair, masonry, bulkhead repairs, doors, etc. Pope is a women-owned business. They've been in business since 2008, have performed work with us in a satisfactory manner. The term of the contract we propose is 2 years with 2 separate 1-year renewal options. The VNC has cleared. There were no issues to preclude award to Pope. Section 3, because this is a job contract, the hiring will be done on a task order basis. This is funded with a mix of federal and city funding. I'll move on. Stop me. I know I've got a lot here. Just stop me if you want me to stop, okay? Item 8 is the recommendation to award a contract for roof and railing replacement at Wise Towers and White Houses. Recommendation is to award to Pro Metal Construction in the amount of almost $7 million. This is part of the Mayor's Roofing Initiative. These are some of the worst roofs in our portfolio. Pro Metal is a woman-owned business enterprise. They performed successfully for us in the past, and there have been no include award. They are proposing 2 Section 3 hires. This is also federal and city funding.
Just a little clarity on Wise Towers. There seems to be sometimes for the residents, there seems to be an understanding that when you say Wise Towers, it includes the consolidation, which is an array of buildings.
Right.
So to be sure, this section of Wise Towers is the 2 buildings with the 4 stair halls.
Correct. 2 buildings, 399 units.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you for that clarity. Item number 9 is the recommendation to award a contract to Neelam Construction Corporation in the amount of slightly over $7 million for roofing and rail replacements at Smith Houses. This will pertain to part of the site. 5 buildings have already been replaced. The roofs were replaced in 2013, and 4 are being replaced through Sandy. So this will complete the site in terms of new roofing and railing. Neelam is a minority-owned business. They've been in business since '98, have performed with us satisfactorily in the past. VNC is cleared, no issues to preclude award. They are proposing 2 Section 3 hires. Item 10, the recommendation to award a contract to ACS System Associates, the amount of almost $3 million for the renovation of the White Houses Community Center. So White Houses is a senior development. This would renovate the Gaylord White Senior Center. It is sponsored by the Union Settlement Association, and they provide a number of benefits for our seniors. They are including exercise, games and arts, cultural activities, nutrition classes, computer classes. The scope of the work includes installation of new HVAC, renovation to the kitchen, the bathroom, and ceiling tile. ACS is a minority-owned business. They've done work for us satisfactorily in the past. The Inspector General's office granted a 1-month extension of their clearance in order for the award of this contract. They are proposing 1 Section 3 hire.
And Deborah, can you just clarify the source of funding for this is?
I'm sorry, I have it. Yes, it is city funding that has come from, among others, Councilmember Reed, Councilmember Mark Viverito, the Bureau President, and the DA's office. Item number 11 is the recommendation to award a contract to DDS Mechanical Plumbing and Heating Group in the amount of almost $7 million for the replacement of existing interior gas piping at Marcy houses. Marcy has been identified as one of our sites with the most dire need for replacement of gas piping, looking at work tickets and leak information from our operations data. And operations in 03 have performed satisfactorily for us in the past. VNC has cleared, no issues, and they are proposing 2 Section 3 hires. Okay, so item number 12 is a recommendation to award a contract to TR Pipe Inc. in the amount of almost $9 million for the replacement of underground steam distribution system and equipment at Point. So this is underground steam and condensate returns between most of the buildings. There are a number of emergency repairs made so as to complete the campus. TR Pipe has been in operation since 2000. They've performed satisfactorily. Their VNC has cleared, no issues to preclude. This is very high variance. The other 2 bidders were even higher. We think this is due to market saturation, as well as TR Pipe has not done work since the PLA has gone into effect, and I think they were a little cautious in their bid. They're proposing 3 Section 3. Item 13 is a recommendation to award a requirement contract for replacement of underground steam and distribution systems. This is on an as-needed basis for the Bronx and Queens boroughs. We're recommending the award to Merrick Mechanical, contract amount of almost $10 million. Merrick's been in operation since '92. They've done a lot of work for us satisfactorily. There were no issues to preclude award, and they're proposing 4 Section 3 hires. Item number 14 is the recommendation to award a contract to DMD Contracting LLC in the amount of almost $26 million for the Sandy recovery work at Reese 2. This is a comprehensive work that includes natural gas engine generators, new building annexes to make sure our utility and mechanical systems are above flood level, partial roof replacement, flood protection elements, utility replacement, site lighting. DMD has been in operation since 2015. This is their first contract with us, which I think is great news. We've done a reference check on other work in the city. They've been satisfactory, including work now with DCAS, the Dormitory Authority of the State of New York. Their VNC is pending, therefore there'll be no award until a determination is made that there is no issue to preclude such. 7 Section 3 hires.
I'm sorry, can we go back to number 12 for a moment?
Of course.
Just so a 36% increase over what our bid is pretty significant,
yes.
Right? And I don't tell, is it that you said something like there aren't a lot of people who do this kind of work?
Right.
Is that true?
It is true. Yeah, we generally have 2 companies that bid on this work. There were 3 here. The next bid was at 90% over our estimate, and another one was at about, if I remember correctly, over 120% over our estimate. The difference between this kind of work and some other work, it has a lot to do with asbestos abatement too. So it is very particular.
So you said something at the end about sort of the PLA and I mean, PLA is complicated and that could be a whole different conversation, but
right.
Like a lot. And I just want to make sure that if we are hearing that from vendors, then we need to have a different response and conversation, I think, because 30% on $300 million a year is a lot of money. Yeah. So just want to a little bit more.
We've looked at the PLA across the impact on pricing on labor across the market, PLA, non-PLA, and there's been this across the market, and we cannot attribute it generally to the PLA, to be honest with you. We've looked at that in terms of working with the law department on the PLA renewal. In this case, this contractor has not worked with the PLA before, and so I think they are understandably a little bit cautious about working within the work rules and issues they've not had to address previously.
And is the contract such that we can manage them to something within where we thought it should be versus we have to give them the full enchilada?
No, this is a lump sum contract for this site. We have another we've got a rejection coming up
Sure.
because in one area we didn't think we could justify a similar variance. So,
But it just to,
yeah,
we're gonna have a lot more of these type of contracts and work to be done. So I'd like to figure out if there's a way in which we can understand the industry, the players a bit more, because so that's gonna just be that work. It's gonna be cost prohibitive to do this work for us. We're gonna have fewer,
Yes.
we're not gonna get to enough developments if we're spending,
Yep.
You see my point?
yes,
Okay.
I do.
Thank you.
I think I'm on item 15.
Yes.
This is the ratification of the 9th change order for the work at Lower East Side Rehab. The contractor is PMY Construction Corporation. The value of this change order is slightly over $244,000. I do want to note that the other previous eight were all minor things. They had tallied about 3.5% value of the contract. They were things like mechanical door closers, adding a sump pump. So as this was our first Sandy recovery site, and as we went along, we did note things that had to be added. Hopefully we'll tighten up in the future, to your point, Board Member Gonzalez. This funding is reimbursed by FEMA insurance or CDBG-DR. Item 16.
Can I
Yes,
go back
sure.
to item 15? So PMY leads, they're the ones that propose the additional changes, or and how?
It's a discussion with staff. So here, I should have mentioned this in particular is putting a concrete slab under the generator, which frankly should have been included in the design documents. So I feel comfortable that the things that we're adding here, we would have paid for anyway, and it's a matter of why the design documents didn't include them.
Okay.
But as a general matter, reviewing the design document, so it was a miss on the architect's part,
Yeah.
but a miss on our collective part as well.
I think so. We are actually adding a new staff person to our quality assurance group, which will be specifically for design review. So sort of
To
audit.
make sure the scope is accurate.
Yeah, they won't be able to do, look over every scope, but they will do enough to highlight some problems if they exist and where do we see patterns.
Right.
Yeah. Item number 16 is the recommendation to reject the sole bid for the replacement of underground piping at various developments in Manhattan. The sole bidder, JCC Construction, submitted a bid proposal which was a little over 35% higher than an estimate. We don't believe there's justification for that. We will rebid. Items number 17 and 18, I am withdrawing. This goes back to an ongoing matter with one of our contractors, APS, and settling issues with Department of Investigation and the Inspector General's office. I have been assured by our law department and by the Office of the Inspector General that they are within minutes. They were working on this till late last night, and so I am withdrawing have an agreement with them that will answer our issues and we'll go forward.
One thing, just one detail I didn't notice. How much was the contract? I know it's
That
we're rejecting this.
Number 16.
the cost estimate was a little over $16 million. Item number 19 is an increase to the CM contract for services at Carlton Manor, Hamel, and Redfern related to our Sandy recovery work. The contractor is DNV.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I was also referring to 17. Does 17 was also a rejection, wasn't it?
Yes, I'm sorry. Both of those were rejections. 17, I'm sorry, I answered you incorrectly. I went back. The first one was worth about 30 million, almost 31 million at items. The second was worth almost 26 million. We had divided Brook Ellen because of its size into two contracts, but the same contractor came in as the low bidder.
They're withdrawn. They're withdrawn. Right, they're withdrawn.
We're withdrawing.
They are withdrawn.
Yeah,
I say
no, I
that
understand.
incorrectly?
No, I understand. I just,
So they will still
We're
be getting the award.
withdrawing the vote.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
We're all clear.
17 and 18, I've withdrawn the votes.
17, 18 are not on the calendar.
Right.
And then this means, so withdrawing, I totally understand, sounds fine. What does this mean for the timing of the work and any potential issues?
Our position would be they've caused any delay that's happened. They were not able to get a clear VNC because of activity by one of their employees and billing to NYCHA on a different project in a different corporate entity. So, what?
Just for clarity, these are the ones who are coming back
Next month.
They've been awarded. They were awarded.
Oh, the work has been.
I'm sorry. They were awarded. We did not articulate at that board meeting that the VNC had not been cleared.
Or we said it was pending.
It was pending.
Right.
And therefore, we did not have the exact language on the record we needed to not award when the VNC finally came through. We would have to officially rescind it.
And that's what's happening today.
And today we withdrew the recommendation to
recommendation,
rescind.
right.
Because we think we'll get to agreement.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I'm sorry if I've gone around the horse too much, around the barn.
To rescind.
Okay. David, Farber, would you like to add something for the record? Stand up.
We awarded, VNC came in with a problem. We have said we will rescind unless you come to an agreement with the Inspector General's office and our commercial litigation department that satisfies us in terms of integrity going forward. Those are the negotiations that are almost set, and therefore I'm withdrawing our request to rescind because we believe we'll come to agreement.
But we saw this on the calendar before.
Yes, we've had,
To
yeah,
move
exactly before
To move to.
rescind.
Yeah.
And I pulled it once before. There's been,
Ongoing discussion.
Yes.
yes.
So we,
But
yeah.
we're within inches this time. Item number 19, increase to the CAM contract for D&B engineers. Coming to the end of our design process for all of our Sandy sites, and as that happens, of course, we finalize schedule and scope. Here, we have increased the scope for this firm, D&B, by asking them to hire and manage the special inspectors required by DOB. We also realized the length of we finalized the length of the construction term, and with that, we were requesting an increase to the contract of about 404.8 to be funded by FEMA, insurance, or CDBG-DR.
Just explain to me why did the scope expand?
We asked them to oversee the special inspections that are required by Department of Buildings, but we also realized that the construction schedule is going to be longer than we expected, so we'll need their services for longer.
And so this is up to, not lump sum.
Correct. Item number 20, similarly, is an increase to the CMA services for Sandy recovery work at Red Hook East and West. The contractor there is, the CM there is Zero Program and Construction Management. We would recommend an increase of $4.8 million. At this point, this is to cover the additional work of managing the special inspections. We do expect to be back with one final change order when we finalize the total construction period. This this would be funded by insurance, FEMA, or CDBG-DR. I'm going to change hats now to real estate for my last presentation. This is item number 21, which seeks authorization to submit HUD documents to HUD for approval to release our Baychester and Murphy sites from our declaration of restrictive covenants, and upon such approval, enter into long-term ground leases with partners. I think you may be somewhat familiar with this portfolio of what we call our LLC2. They were taken into our federal portfolio after a period of time when state and city funding ended. We did not, however, get federal funding to go along with adding them to our portfolio. So we have been paying, we've been sharing, so to speak, our operating subsidy with these sites. Clearly, it's been a drain on our operating, and they also have over $600 million worth of capital needs. We did get permission to convert voluntarily to Section 8 or upon turnover. We've been doing that. most of the residents didn't choose to convert. If we stay in our current status quo, we don't expect full conversion until 2026. So to go with a firm conversion to Section 8, everyone's rent will be at 30% of income, even if they are over income for Section 8. This will allow, we will go into a partnership with a development partner through a land lease and development agreement, which we'll come back to you about. And we will help leverage the money needed for the capital repairs, as well as put it on sound financial footing and preserving the affordability over the long term. Therefore, I am asking, we are recommending that the members approve the resolution and permit the execution of any and all documents deemed necessary to obtain approval from HUD to release the division of restrictive covenants in order: 1, to remove the developments from the authority's public housing portfolio pursuant to 2 CFR 200.311C1 or any other regulations as instructed by HUD. 2, to convert approximately 465 units at the development from an ACC to a Section 8 PDV HAP contract in accordance with all applicable rules and regulations. And 3, upon HUD approval of the foregoing, enter a long-term ground lease with the developer for the rehabilitation and continued use of the developments as affordable housing in accordance with the authority's bylaws, delegation record, and other applicable authority procedures and documents pursuant to the foregoing terms of the resolution. And others we are going with these first steps. We will move through as we have Section 8 availability. Right now, we have availability to support these 2 developments moving forward. Are there any questions? Yes.
I have a bunch. This is, so right now we share costs of this with whom? Is it?
So we don't get HUD funding. They're eligible to use our HUD funding. So they cost us about $23 million on the operating side a year. So that's the sharing. That's the word we use.
Okay.
We're stretching.
So there's no
We're stretching
sharing.
our federal
Okay.
resources to cover these developments.
And is there a current landlord? Is it the existing landlord?
This is our,
Developer?
we own it. It is under our restriction as public housing, Section 9 housing right now. We just don't receive money
Okay.
to go along with that.
So you would have to contract.
We are going
We
to
would
go, we're going
contract?
through an RFP process. Yes, so we will
Okay.
be back on the real estate transaction later. We have put these first 2 sites out for RFP right now.
And is there an expectation about how long that contract would be? I mean, how long
Well, generally, we enter into a ground lease at somewhere between, depends upon the transaction, 60 to 90 years with the right to have the return of the asset to NYCHA at the end of the term.
What are the current rental guidelines there?
Right now,
They're traditional public housing?
Public housing.
Yes.
And then with the change, it would be 30% of income?
Well, they, Section 8 is 30% of income. We anticipate that some residents may be over income. So I just want to acknowledge that we are saying to everyone there that you will pay no more than 30% of your income, even if you're over income for Section 8.
And it's a unit based, right? The
Yes,
unit
it's
is the
project-based
one that
contract. Yes,
project-based.
it's stuck to the units.
Any questions?
Okay. Thank you all very much for your patience.
Thank you. Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Louis Ponce, Senior Vice President of Operations for Support Services. I'll be presenting items 22 to 30. Item 22 is request to enter into an agreement with Clatter Controls Corporation for software upgrades and the installation services for traction elevators. It's a 2-year contract with the option for a 1-year renewal. These upgrades will be done to 505 traction elevators at 40 developments. These are changes to the control. I've been to the board with these contracts before. They do 2 things. They allow the elevator, they shut the elevator down if the brakes do not release, if it tries to leave a floor and the brakes are still engaged. And it also brings it to compliance with the 2020 building code for door lock monitoring. So if there is a door that is open, the elevator will not run. These are safety enhancements for the elevators. This contract is not to exceed $3,040,450. Clatter has done about $500,000 worth of software upgrades on our elevators in the last 5 years. And just to give you a little bit of an overview, so the elevators that do have these brake monitors in the authority is 1,153. Deal with 4 vendors to get it done. We have one more vendor that is doing a pilot to do the modifications. It's NYCHA Corporation, and they have 440 of our elevators. So I will come to board with one more from a vendor if we can get it all done on one contract for the last 440. So they'll be in compliance.
So just a question about, so this was a sole source, and my understanding is the reason you would do that is because they're already there, that we are already using their software. Is that right?
The controllers are manufactured and made by CLATA. Yeah, so
right.
they don't
So
allow.
it's not really, if you were to bid competitively, you might be dealing with a whole bigger overhaul.
Yeah, and then my understanding is the language is proprietary to CLATA. They won't give it out just for industry standards. They won't allow another company to come and do. And then also, there's liability issues if you bring a firm to alter the original equipment manufacturer software. So we would rather bring in. So we talked with the law department, and we did get the opinion that this is only done by the original manufacturer.
Right. But, and you're saying you referenced other companies that do other sites. So when you look at the big picture for the entire portfolio, we have certain software at certain sites and certain software at other sites. Is that?
It's not only the software, it's the controller itself. Because HUD doesn't allow us to say I can only use one product and nothing else unless that's the only one in the world that makes it. So these are the lowest bidders over the years. So we have 4 contractors that supply right now that supply the controllers. That's the brains of the elevator, tells it where to go, tells it what floor, when to stop, how fast it goes. So we had to approach those 4 manufacturers to do pilots and to get the software fix for this, and then go forward with changing the software. All of the elevators going forward, this is part of the requirement, so we don't have to deal with this in the future.
I see. And the reason it's new and wasn't included in the previous, the recent contracts is because is it a new code? What's the explanation for the difference?
So there's 2 things. One of them is a new code. It's supposed to take effect in 2020. So we're kind of getting a little bit ahead of the curve for the door lock monitoring aspect of it. And the brake monitoring was actually logically when the elevator, I think I'll go through it once again. I don't know if I explained it to the board members who are currently here. So an elevator doesn't stop like a vehicle. It doesn't use the brakes to stop to get there. It uses the motor. The motor stops it, and the brakes just hold it on that floor. When the elevator leaves, when the controller tells it to go, the brakes should release. There have been occasions where the brakes do not release. So the brakes stay there. As they run through, the motor is stronger than the brakes. As it runs through the brakes, they get hot, and they lose the ability to hold the car on the floor. So as it runs up and down, after a few runs, it will get to a floor, and the brake won't hold it. And the weight of the car and the counterweight the car will drift. And the car will move with the door open. So this is to avoid that. So when the manufacturers made the elevators, and all the other elevators in the city say, okay, if the brake doesn't apply, shut it down. That the car cannot be held. But there was never any feature to say, what if it doesn't? What if it doesn't release? So this is kind of new. Yeah, so this is new. This is the safety feature for the housing authority. Others, we also discussed it with the Department of Buildings. They may make it for the rest of the city, but we definitely need it to be done at the housing authority. Okay. Item number 23 is request to award a requiring contract to lowest responsive and responsible bidder, New York Environmental Systems, to the amount of $3,473,275,000. It's a 2-year contract with the option to renew it for 1 more year. This is for replacement and the abatement of floor tiles in move-out apartments in Manhattan. This is done as we prepare apartments for the next residents. We allow the apartments for us to retile over damaged tile for 4 layers. After 4 layers, it becomes tripping hazard. Also, it interferes with the obstruction, the doors as they move in the apartments. So once you get 4 layers of floor tile and you have more than 10 square feet of damage, we test it to see if there's asbestos and if there is asbestos, we call in this contractor. He follows all city, state, and federal rules and regulations for asbestos abatement, and they abate all of the floor tiles in the apartment, get it prepared for a new layer of floor tile for the incoming resident. New York Environmental Services has done about $16 million worth of this type of work in the last 5 years. Their Section 3 plan, they will hire 4 asbestos handlers on this contract. Okay. Item number 24 is a request to approve a ratification to increase the not to exceed amount for the contract that the authority has with New York Boiler Incorporated for boiler welding services in the borough of Brooklyn. So these services are used pretty much, the majority is during the summer season when we take our heating system down to do preventive maintenance. We do a thorough inspection of both the inside and the outside of the boilers. And if there is any welding that needs to be done, this is the vendor that we call in to do the welding. We did do a ratification on this because we wanted to prepare for the coming heating season, make sure all the work was done and that we will be prepared to supply those services. The new not to exceed amount on this contract is $2,854,293.90. New York Boiler has completed about $10.5 million worth of this work in the past 5 years satisfactorily.
And so could you just tell us where we are in the overall completion of the summer overhaul work?
Okay, so for the hot water, we kind of break it into three components. For the hot water tanks, 100% of the hot water tanks have been. For the boilers, we're at done, so that's 88% that we're catching up on. But because we have redundancy and we don't expect it to drop very quickly on October 1st, we should be okay. And for the vacuum tanks, which kind of distributes the steam to the buildings, we're at 88. We're at 18% less. So that's
left.
8% left to do on the vacuum tanks. Yeah. So we're diligently working to get that done, and we expect to have it done before we really have to supply heat to the buildings.
Thank you.
Okay. Items number 25, 26, and 27 is the same work that I had discussed for 24. That is our contract with New York Boiler. These are for the remaining boroughs. For 25 is for the Bronx, 26 is for Queens and Staten Island, 27 is for Manhattan. The 50% clause to allow to increase the capacity of the contract by 50%, again, to do unexpected work, boiler welding work as we head into the winter season. The new not to exceed amount for 25, the Bronx is $2,267,184.20. For 26, Queens is $1,353,994.50. And for number 27, it's $2,810,015.25. We have put in for replacements of all of these contracts. The bids are actually due tomorrow. So once those contracts are awarded, we don't expect to use these into the coming year. We understand that we needed contracts. So I'll probably be coming to the board before the end of the year with the replacement of these contracts. This is just to get us over until we replace the new contract.
Just one question. Is there, for all these contracts, is there similar unit pricing? It was hard to tell, like, how the pricing compared.
Yeah, the price similar. They're actually all to the same vendor, unfortunately. The prices are similar. We base it on the amount of boilers we have in each borough. That's how come some of them have more than others. Other contractors to bid on this. There is an R certification that you need from the Department of Buildings, and the procurement department has done extensive outreach in the past. They've actually reached out to every firm in New York City that has this R permit. In the past, what the companies have told us is because we need this work done pretty quickly, and because it has highs and lows, they can do a planned contract and know they need 10 welders for the next 6 months, but to have one day have 40 welders and the next day have 5, it's difficult for them to work in that fashion. So we'll continue to work and try to get more bidders on this contract. Item number 28 is seeks authorization to award a requirement contract to PDQ Supply Incorporation. This is strictly a parts contract. They'll provide gas range parts to various developments and also to our Long Island City warehouse. This is a 3-year contract with no renewal options. This contract is not to exceed for $1,350,372.56. PDQ Supply Incorporated has supplied us with about $7 million worth of supplies to the authority over the last 5 years. Again, these are only parts. These will be installed by Housing Authority personnel to make repairs to our ranges in the apartments.
Why are we doing parts and not just getting people new stoves?
There is a capital plan,
Okay.
but this is just to maintain them within the 15-year cycle that we change the stoves. So as they fall down, this covers everything from the internal parts to the knobs. If people lose a knob, it's all included in this contract. Yeah, just like the day-to-day things.
The day-to-day.
And this is the cost?
There are resources for new stoves, right? Coming from the state, not for the entire authority. We're catching up with a lot of delayed investment. I want to see fewer of these kind of contracts, right? I know we need something for like knobs and kind of thing, but like just the notion of retooling 15-year-old ranges seems both unsafe and not particularly effective. So it'd be great to understand kind of where we are in the full replacement of ranges, probably refrigerators too. Throw that in. And then think about that as we are beginning to talk to elected officials, et cetera, about what our needs are.
Absolutely.
Because I hear this a lot from residents, right? They came and they fixed the stove, but it's 20 years old, right? As opposed to, so it just, if we could articulate what our need is, then that I think could be helpful.
Absolutely. Okay, we'll start working on that.
I'm sorry. I mean, no, my question was how these contracts work. They get filled, right? Is the cost as it goes? It's not.
The development will order. If we have an Oracle system where they'll put an order in and they'll say, I need 20 knobs, there's so many gas regulators, so many different parts, and then they'll deliver it either to development or to if Long Island City Warehouse needs to stock them, they'll stock them there. So it's a not to exceed amount, so we might not get to the total amount of this contract. I don't know.
And what determines the cost now at this juncture? Is it based on an assessment of what may be the need?
What's the need?
The cost of each part of the total cost of the contract?
Total cost
they
of the contract.
use historical, how much we've ordered in the past years. That's what they use to order.
Okay.
But to my point, if
Yes,
we're replacing them, then this ultimately may go down.
Absolutely. And there is logically a point where the repairs cost you
Right.
more than getting a new
Right.
stove. Yeah, I understand. Mr.
I'm under the assumption then that these parts that we're getting at the units that we're going to provide them to are standard at these places. Because gas ranges are different.
Yes.
So I guess you went out, you figured out these are all standard, these are the parts that we're getting, so that we don't have any excess because we can't use them.
Right. So being that the developments order them on a consolidated basis, if for some reason they order a part for a different type of stove, they can return them to the manufacturer and then order the right ones. Yeah. So we're okay. Okay. Item number 29 is request for an authorization to increase a not to exceed amount of a requirement contract with Matrix Construction Incorporated for the installation of bathtub wall surrounds by 50% as permitted under the original requirement contract. The scope includes labor materials for the installation of the hot water valves, diverters, shower heads, tub spouts, soap dishes, and the bathtub wall surround. So these are the surrounds that take the place of a tile, the old tile tubs. Yeah, so they'll replace them as they wear out. The new not to exceed amount for this contract will be $597,648. Original contract did not go above the threshold for contract for board approval. So you didn't see the original contract, but because we're invoking the 50% clause, it has to go to the board. Matrix has completed about $1.4 million worth of these services over the last 5 years satisfactorily.
Is this 29?
This 29?
Correct.
And you said the amount was what?
So I'm the amount of the change order is 199,216, but I added the amount of the existing contract.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why it's different.
And is the amount on a per unit basis consistent with the original contract?
Part of the original contract is that the contractor has to honor the same prices and terms and conditions of the original contract. Yeah. Okay. Item number 30 is request authorization to reject all bids for the authority for the purchase of various machinery and grounds items. These are for maintaining our developments, various parts, and also maintaining some of the equipment on there. But there were two bidders on this contract. The lowest bidder submitted an incomplete bid. They didn't bid on all the line items. The second bidder bid over estimate. Procurement was able to find an existing DCAS contract that covers these items. We rebid. We will do a backdrop agreement on the DCAS contract, and the DCAS contract is very close to our estimate, so we'll go forward with that one. Thank you for your time.
Questions?
Good morning, Chair and board members. Kathy Pennington, Executive Vice President for Leased Housing and NGO Operations. number 31 is requesting authorization to amend the authority's Section 8 administrative plan in accordance with the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development. The plan has been revised to be consistent with HUD policy and regulatory changes and the authority's local priorities, and to address minor edits to provide better clarification of policies. So annually, the Section 8 program does a review of what is referred to as their administrative plan. The administrative plan is primarily a policy document that speaks to any federal or local policies that we use to administer the Section 8. We do public outreach to share the changes to the plan along with NYCHA's annual plan review process and gather input at that time. So we've been through that process and request your approval for this year's revision.
Do you have, can you comment on any highlights from all these changes? Anything particularly significant or that's been in the news or newsworthy?
Well, a couple new initiatives that the program launched. One is called the HUD VASH Continuum, which increases the number of homeless veterans we can serve. That was a new program that we are piloting with HUD. Another is called the Family Unification Program. And again, that is another special project that we're working on with HUD. And that program enables us to serve youth leaving foster care. Previously, the program only served families. And now we're adding a new group of individuals who can benefit from getting what's called a Family Unification Program voucher. Those are some new things. There were a lot of regulatory changes that were announced by HUD in the past year. For instance, another very minor one is around utility reimbursement payments. There's some more flexibility added to how we can reimburse tenants who have a utility allowance. Trying to think of some others. Standards get revised annually when HUD announces the new fair market rents. There were also changes with VAWA, which is the Violence Against Women Act. There were some changes in definitions of VAWA and also in process on how someone is eligible to exercise their rights under that. So those would be examples of some of the changes.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair, GM, and board members. I'm Tricia Roberts, the Director of Internal Audit. Sorry about my height. I'm here today to present resolution number 32, requesting your authorization to approve the issuance of the NYCHA single audit report ending December 31st, 2016, in accordance with the Single Audit Act of 1984, the amendment of 1996, and Title II U.S. Code of Federal Regulations, Part 2, also known as Uniform Guidance. This audit was conducted for the purposes of performing an opinion on the financial statements and compliance with regs in accordance to the single audit report. The date of submission for the single audit report is to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse is September 30th. On September 14th, Deloitte, as well in conjunction with myself, presented the results of the single audit report to the audit committee. Some of the highlights from the single audit report was A, the opinion was unmodified, which indicates that the internal auditor did not conclude in their opinion there was any reasonable and followed all accounting rules. All the schedules and footnotes prepared as fair adequacy of internal controls. They did not identify any material weaknesses or any significant deficiencies in internal controls over reporting and in those in respect to governance. And in terms of compliance, the single audit did not contain any findings. This is the second year. Last year we had no findings. This year we don't have any findings as well. So going forward, we're now considered by HUD a low audit team. So there would be less tests to rely on the internal work of the prior year's audits, as well as the work that's being done in the internal audit department for our reports. Based on the presentation to the audit committee, the board approval for the issue, we're asking for board approval for the issuance of the single audit report in compliance with the audit committee charter adopted in the resolution and subsequent aspects. Concerns? Mr.
All I have is
Gonzalez?
a statement. I just want to thank you for the way you accommodate the changes that the audit committee members ask you to do, and you do it very quickly. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's good audit practice. I must say that the audit committee is very vested. They are very active. They ask really good questions. They keep myself and Karen on our toes thinking about other options, and it has been a very well audit committee with the help of the actual board members and the team that works with myself. So we thank you for your participation.
Who's on the audit committee?
Mr. Gonzalez, Derek Cephas, he chairs, Mr. Mark Kaplan, and Mr. Richard Koo.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So good morning. Great, I come up and I lose my voice. Good morning, Chair, members of the board. My name is Anne Marie Flatley, and I'm the Vice President for Performance Management and Analytics. This resolution is actually related to item number 21 that was presented by Deborah Goddard for Baychester and Murphy. This resolution seeks authorization to submit an amendment to the authority's fiscal year 2017 annual public housing agency plan. As per this amendment to the 2017 plan, NYCHA proposes to use a 2 CFR Part 200 retention action to accelerate the conversion of the LLC 2 developments to Section 8 project-based voucher assistance. Upon HUD approval of the retention action, the authority will require current residents to transition from public housing to Section 8 project-based assistance. All residents will remain in place and no one will be asked to move. This resolution also seeks authorization to submit the PHA certification of compliance with the PHA plans and related regulations to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development in accordance with Section 511 of the Work Responsibility Act of 1998. The signed certification includes a notation which has been discussed with HUD about NYCHA's cooperation with the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York's investigation into public housing conditions, which was initiated in October 2015. The certification provision asserts that NYCHA is working to ensure full compliance with lead-based paint regulations, but at the time of this certification is not in full compliance. You may recall we discussed a notation to the significant amendment previously presented at the last board meeting. This notation is identical to the one discussed at the July board meeting. Amendment and board resolution will be hand-delivered to HUD's field office by October 18th. So if there's any questions. Great.
Is there any requirement to do some public presentation or hearing or? Oh, so this.
Yes. So
the
I'm sorry. So this is the September 6th public hearing included both this amendment as well as the annual plan. And both documents were available for public review, and we also had them at the hearing. Okay. So item number 34. This resolution seeks authorization to submit the authority's fiscal year 2018 annual public housing agency plan. The PHA plan provides details about the authority's current programs and the resident population served, as well as NYCHA's strategy for addressing housing needs for the currently assisted families in the larger community. This resolution also seeks authorization to submit the PHA's certification of compliance with the PHA plans and related regulations to HUD. As is the case with the previous resolution, item number 33, the signed certification also includes the notation that's been discussed with HUD about NYCHA's cooperation with the U.S. Attorney's Office. The certification provision asserts NYCHA is working to ensure full compliance with lead-based paint regulations, at the time of the certification is not in full compliance. This notation, as stated previously, is identical to the one presented at the board meeting and approved by the group. The signed certification, along with the final plan and board resolution, will also be hand-delivered to HUD's office by October 18th.
Questions?
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, 32 items were presented for board approval, with items number 17 and 18 being withdrawn. Do I have a motion to approve? Second motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great month.